as soon as that game started and the Eagles just drove down the field, that was a bad sign. But then they punted it, or the Giants got the ball, and they actually were moving the ball pretty well. And the point that I think the game was lost, honestly, was when they went for it on 4th and 8.
I was gonna ask, like, I think
Not that they would have won at all. I mean, they were completely outmatched from a talent perspective. Coaching can only do so much. Anyway, go
right.
on.
No, I was curious what you thought of that because I saw the I think it was the SB Nation Giants account. They were live tweeting the game, and basically they thought it was like not that indefensible, only because they were like, we're massive underdogs, like we have to take the chance.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, I think I would understand that line of thinking if it was A, later in the game and the score was more out of hand, and B, the down and distance was slightly less.
Not 8 yards.
If
Yeah.
it was 4th and 3, or if it was 4th and 2, I would understand. But also, I would also understand if it was something along the lines of, oh, Dable has a specific kind of like gadget or trick play for a type of situation like this, and it didn't seem like anything really developed once the ball was snapped. Also,
Exactly. I mean, I like I like being aggressive, but this was one of the rare aggressive moments from Brian Daboll that I did not like.
Right,
It seemed
that it
more
was-
desperate than aggressive.
yes, right. And I think there is a difference, right? There is a difference when you feel like you need
Yes.
to do something or are doing it to kind of like change the pace or momentum.
And that's when the game was lost,
Right, I agree.
because the Giants just have such a huge talent gap. I mean, let's go through it. Offensive line, Eagles, receivers, Eagles, running backs. Oh, well, the stable of running backs, you would go with the Eagles. But I mean, Matt Breida actually had a decent game. But I guess Saquon, quarterback, probably the Eagles, even though Jalen Hurts only had like 154 yards passing, so it really was not. The run game won that game.
The way this game was won was just by the Eagles basically spamming their run game, their short chunky run game as like a blunt force instrument against the Giants linebackers.
That's the thing, is the
They were
Giants
like Nick
linebackers
McLeod,
were doggy
Jalen.
doo-doo.
Yeah, they were like Nick McLeod,
Doggy doo-doo.
Jalen Smith. Like,
Yep.
we're gonna torture you until this game is over.
There's a reason that Jalen Smith was kind of an off the street signing to a degree. The
Right.
Giants have huge holes at wide receiver and at linebacker in particular,
Mm-hmm.
and they're also thin on their defensive line. When Dexter Lawrence wasn't in the game, it was just like automatic. They're going to get 8 yards, 10 yards on this run play. And Dexter Lawrence can't play. The amount of snaps that he plays is completely unsustainable. They need more depth. I mean,
Totally.
this is an issue
Yeah,
with
like
Gettleman and what the roster that he created.
In a perfect world, the guy of like Dexter Lawrence's size and build like wouldn't be out there for like 60% of the snaps, because there would be enough depth to like to complement him in terms of what he can do stopping the run. But they just don't have that luxury, and he is just truly probably their best guy in the front seven. In my opinion, and the fact that the edge rush, while obviously Thibodeau has come on strong in the last few weeks, it's only just been a little bit more intimidating. They kind of, I think, need a serious edge threat to give Lawrence a little bit more time to breathe.
Yes.
and that was clear with how they were running the ball at will. And the Eagles, just, I think the thing I find so interesting about the Eagles relative to the Niners is that they don't really necessarily need to they don't think they need to vary anything, and at this point they're being proven right, because I think their attitude is essentially, we'll exploit a weakness until we have some sort of proof that weakness can no longer be exploited.
Exactly. I mean, they saw the run game was working. They knew that if they got Miles Sanders in particular outside, it was outside runs as opposed to going in the interior or avoiding Dexter Lawrence. And like, this is why the Vikings made a lot of mistakes in not sticking with the run.
Right.
Because if you are creative and get the guys to the outside, to the boundary, you're able to exploit that weakness with the Giants linebackers.
And the Eagles' offensive line was just simply mauling them.
Well,
I mean,
but back to Thibodeau, I mean, Lane Johnson shut him down.
that's the thing, is that, and especially with like short yardage stuff too, it was just like they were like bulldozers, like moving cement. Like they were just literally pushing forward with very little resistance.
It was obvious good coaching can only do so much, right? And the Giants there was a reason that they were picked to be a bottom 5, bottom 10 team in the NFL this year because of the state of the roster. And they're just not built to come from behind. I mean, Daniel Jones didn't play great, but at a certain point, it's like, I don't know. I don't put that loss on him. I don't really put that loss on anybody except for Dave Gettleman and the roster that he had
Yeah,
created.
I mean, the one thing I was saying, it's like, of course, it was like a pretty, the Eagles won handily, but I don't think that's necessarily a surprise, given how healthy Hurts looked and how complete this team is. And it was even complete before Hurts was a little dinged up, and especially now that he's looking healthier and Lane Johnson is playing. He's back at right guard, right tackle.
Sorry?
Right is
For Lane Johnson?
Is he right tackle?
He's
Right,
right tackle.
Right tackle. Sorry,
Yeah.
back at right tackle. So with all that being said, I mean, the Giants coming into this season with no prospects necessarily of even being a competitive team, let alone a playoff team, let alone a team that won a playoff game.
Yeah.
Getting into this situation, I don't think there's really anything super, I would say super, I don't think there's any real takeaway that's super pessimistic for this team, especially given how much they've spent on this roster and how much money they can look to get out from under after some of these Gettleman contracts either get restructured or taken completely off the books.
Galladay.
So Galladay, Leonard Williams, if they can restructure that so he's not receiving $35 million next year. Like, if there's a lot for the long-term and short-term future for this team to figure out, and I think it's really just gravy the fact that they were able to play this well given the constrictions of their roster and win a playoff game.